Hey there everyone, welcome back to the Dan Cave and welcome back to another video build. So, in this video build, I'm going to build the Revell Chevy Chevelle SS 396 in 25th scale. So this video is a little bit different. I'm going to build the entire car in one video, and it's fairly short. So there's a lot of reasons behind that. I wanted to squeeze it into one video. Plus, when I did this build, it was done pretty quickly. It was done for Paul Bretland's birthday Christmas buddy build over at ISM. So it was a little bit of a drop in at the last moment because I didn't have the kit. Spotted one on Amazon, I think it was, picked it up, and to kind of squeeze it in with everything going on, all the other projects I had at the back end of last year, it was quite a quick build. So I've ended up going for, well, as you'll see in the video, a fairly muted overall scheme. So there's not a lot of kind of detail, kind of paint work in it. And you'll see that when you get to it. So it's all in one part. Sit back, relax, and enjoy 20 minutes of me building the Chevelle SS 396. So, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, and for everyone watching, don't forget to drop a like as well, and feel free to leave comments as well as you wish. So sit back, relax, and let's head on over and see how I get on with this kit. I'll be back at the end for some final thoughts. So over we go. So straight into the box. It's the usual collection of bagged parts from Revell in their side opening boxes. First step, identify anything that needs to be body color. And I can go straight into the prep of the bodywork. So there's kind of the usual seams. They're probably better than normal on most of the Revell kits. This is a relatively recent tooling from Revell compared to all their other monogram reboxes. So this one is not bad. There are some seam lines to fix, but because of the scheme I've chosen for, I've decided to not have any of the chrome trim which runs along the side of the car. So I'm going to remove the raised detail for that using, first of all, a sharp blade and carefully trying to not slice myself open. Then sanding it back using some UMP thinny sticks. And then carefully doing the same on the other side. Although I found a neat little trick by using the knife blade as kind of like a chisel. I could actually remove an entire strip of the raised detail. So that essentially gives me a pretty smooth kind of body shape. And will hopefully show off the gloss color that I'm going to go on with no chrome trim. So the inspiration for this car came from one I saw on the internet. The one on the internet I saw had only one wing mirror, so I've decided to replicate that on this kit. So I filled in where that wing mirror should go. So the bodywork's primed in UMP white primer. It's given approximately 3 coats of primer. So the usual kind of process, about 30 psi using the UMP Apex, and I get a lovely coat of UMP primer, white. Now the first colour I'm laying down is yellow, because this car is going to have yellow stripes across the bonnet, roof and the rear. So I'm using Gravity Spain Daytona Yellow. So I'm going to build that up slowly, as it is a lacquer paint. And in total, I think I'll lay down about 4 or 5 coats of yellow. And that gives me a sufficient depth of colour for where I want the striping to be. And of course, the bonnet gets done at this stage as well, because that's going to have yellow stripes as well. I think here I am on to probably the 3rd or 4th coat. So just laying it down, nice even coverage. I'm using an Iwata Neo airbrush this time with 0.35 needle, running at about 20 psi, thereabouts. And that paint has gone down lovely and smooth, and I am very happy with that. So once that's down and fully cured, it's time to start masking out where the stripes are going to be. So there's going to be two stripes running along the car. There's going to be a gap between them, so I'm going to use the small Tamiya masking tape. I think this is the 3mm. So that's going to act as the dividing line between them. So I'm just using the calipers to make sure I get a nice even width each side. Once I'm happy with that, I can then lay down some Tamiya 10mm tape, and that'll be the width of the stripes running down the car from front to back. So that'll go the whole way across the front lip, the bonnet or hood, across the roof, and across the boot / trunk. So with the tape nicely down and the anti-static brush used to remove any dust, I can now start to lay down the base colour. So for this I'm using Tamiya X18 semi-gloss black, and that's thinned with Mr. Hobby aqueous thinners, I believe. So that's going through the apex at about 20 psi. I'm going to slowly build this up to give me that deep, rich black colour that I want for this car. Kind of slowly working my way through, going front to back, side to side, trying to make sure I avoid any kind of distinctive hatching or striping with the way I paint. Once the bonnet is done, I can then move on to the body, making sure I get under the arches, in around the inside of the bonnet as well. So any visible area, make sure I get into all those kind of awkward angles. And then I can start building up the paint on the side of the car. Do one side first, then the other side. Normally try and do front and rear, then cover the roof and bonnet, trunk, boot, whatever. But try and work through the same process each time, so I know I've put the same amount of layers on the entire bodywork. So I think it only took about 3 coats to give me complete coverage that I was happy with. I think this is probably the second full coat. Again, making sure I get inside all the window frames, inside the bonnet areas. And yeah, I'm quite happy with that colour. So once that's had a little bit of curing time, it's time to go back and remove the masking tape that I applied earlier. So carefully, slowly removing the tape, pulling it back from where it's stuck down. And that tape comes off absolutely fine. No bleed. And I appear to have 2 perfect yellow stripes running front to back. So again, that's left to cure overnight. Then the following day, I can go back in and apply the clear coat. So I'm using Gravity 2K through the UMP apex at about 18 to 20 psi. I'm going to give it 3 coats with about 10 minutes rest time in between. So the first coat is the tack coat. In some ways the most important coat. This gives the kind of foundation for what the subsequent layers will adhere to, reduces the risk of runs, reduces the risks of poor coverage. So once I get a nice tack coat down, I can set the model aside for 10 minutes. That will become incredibly sticky. And then I can go back for the first wet coat. So as part of the tack coat, I'm also making sure I get under any of the arches, make sure where that paint was wrapped around that that's covered with clear coat as well. So laying down that first wet coat, basically I'm looking for an almost perfect finish. A little bit of orange peel will level out, or you can cover it in the third coat, but by the second coat, I'm basically trying to get pretty much a full clear coat. So as you can see at this stage, I can still remove a little bit of dust or fibre that sits on the car. Once you get to the final coat, you can't do that. But as this is the first wet coat to the second coat in total, I can get away with it, lay down the first wet coat, see how it looks, see if I'm happy with it, and then once again set that aside for 10 minutes, and then come back in for the final clear coat, which is basically just a mist coat. So I just want to put down enough 2K so that it will self-level and give me that beautiful gloss finish that I want from this kit. So far overall, I'm really happy with the gloss. I do appear to have a slight dent in the roof, not sure where that came from, but hopefully the flatting back will sort that out later. However, all that set to one side, I've now got all the chrome parts to deal with as well, so I'm going to strip all the chrome off these parts, basically dunk them in a tub, bit of household bleach, and that chrome will disappear in minutes. So once I'm happy with all that, all those parts will get rinsed off and then set aside to dry. So I've also got some spare wheels, which I'm stealing from another kit, which give a little bit of a different look to the car, but we'll have a look at them a little bit later on. So while all those parts are beginning to dry, I can start assembling the engine block. So I'm just using a little bit of Tamiya Extra Thin just to put the two halves of the engine block together. I'm also going to drill out some locating holes for some HT leads. And once that's done, I can then go and prime the engine block. So it's getting primed in UMP grey. That primer can then be set aside to dry for a good 6 to 12 hours. There's plenty of other parts which also need to get primed in UMP black at this stage. So once I'm happy with the engine block, I've mixed up some Chevy engine orange, which I'm using to completely coat the engine block. So I'm actually really pleased with how this orange colour has come out. So it's mixed from a number of Revell aqua colours as per the instructions, but it looks pretty close to my eye. So once that's been set aside to dry for a good 12 hours, I can then come back in and start attaching some of the other parts. So things like the oil filter, the carbs, the exhaust manifolds. So all of those parts are attached using some CA glue. Can also add in the rocker covers. So these were primed in black and then sprayed with Green Stuff World Chrome. Which for me, that all looks pretty good. Once I'm happy with that, I've added on the front fan and the belts, etc. I can now add in the HT leads. So for some bizarre reason, I've gone for brown wire. Seem to kind of match nicely with the orange. And insert them into the pre-drilled holes, wrap it round, and glue it up in an incorrect firing order, no doubt. So with the engine done, it's time to start work on the chassis and the actual frame of the car. So all these parts are cleaned up, checked for fitment. I also clean up all the interior parts. So you've got the seats, the rear seats, the door cards, the dashboard. So there's a lot of part cleanup. There's quite a big part count in this kit. But once I'm happy that everything's been cleaned up, I can mount them suitably and then begin the priming process. So most of the chassis and running gear have been primed in UMP black. A lot of it will just be left in the UMP black colour, because for me that's quite a nice, slightly sheened matte. Not quite semi-gloss, but it's got a little bit of a sheen to it. And for me that looks quite good. So the seats themselves, so they were primed in UMP grey. Now they were primed in grey because they're actually going to get yellow stripes. So this is the same yellow that was used on the body. This is the Gravity Spain Daytona yellow. So yellow over grey, which was different from the body because it had yellow over white, but I wanted a slightly different tone of yellow to the outside because obviously these seats would have been in vinyl slash leather, but nonetheless, the yellow areas that I want are masked up, and then I go back in with some X18 semi-gloss black, which will give me that leatherette vinyl semi-sheened color that I want on the seats. So once again, it's a case of building it up slowly. You don't want to flood it. You don't want to risk any kind of bleed through under the masking tape. As long as you work your way slowly around, you get good coverage and won't risk any bleed. So once those parts have been painted and set aside for a little bit of time, I can come back in and remove the masking tape. As you can see, I'm left with a black and yellow seat, which matches the overall scheme from the exterior of the car, which is exactly what I wanted. So now that a lot of the other parts have had suitable drying time, can actually start assembling them. The engine can get assembled into the frame. And then the interior can be assembled together, and the frame and chassis can be combined. I will say the fit of these parts actually been really good on this Revell kit. Quite a lot of detail on the underside. So there's a whole bunch of other parts which I've got. A lot of them are the de-chrome parts, so things like the wheels. So all of these parts are getting re-primed in UMP black. Lays down a nice base over the stripped chrome plastic. Parts like the front bulkhead, the radiator, all those parts are all getting primed in UMP black. All through the UMP apex. So once I'm satisfied with that and those parts have cured for enough time, I can go back in and repaint the wheels in X18 semi-gloss black, which is the desired colour and finish I want. There's also all the parts like the front grille, front and rear bumpers, so they are all getting painted in semi-gloss black as well. And this is a big reason why this is only a one-part video, because pretty much everything is black on this car. So once the body and the bonnet have had a good 4 or 5 days of curing time, it's time to go back in and flatten down any dust spots. There's always a few, and see if I can remove some of that blemish that was in the roof as well. Try and flatten it back a little bit. So I'm using a mixture of 6,000, 8,000, 12,000 micro mesh with some water to flat back that surface. Make sure I dry as I go. Once I'm happy it's flattened back, it's then time to go in with the UMP polishing compounds, starting with number 1, which is the compound itself, and work that all the way around the body and bring back a little bit of the shine. Once I'm happy that that's done its job, it's time to go in with polish number 2, which will hopefully bring back a nice high shine polish back to the kit. So once again, work that all the way around the body using a microfiber cloth. And once it's dried off to a nice haze, you can then polish everything back to a nice high shine finish. So far so good. I'm really happy with how the bodywork has come out. Really happy with the interior. Engine is suitably detailed. Looks good to me. So with all that done, it's time to move on to sorting things like lights and glass. And finally move on to final assembly. So sun visors get fitted. So the rear screen and the quarter lights I've actually tinted with Tamiya smoke. Gives the car much more of a blacked out window look, which I do like. So those clear parts are basically glued in using some UV resin glue. So apply it in a few spaces around the window and apply the UV light for about 20 to 30 seconds over each spot. Then the windscreen is carefully placed in. I think this is one of the best windscreens I've ever seen from Revell. The clarity is excellent. And use the same UV glue to glue that into place. So with the windows in, the interior and the engine assembled and the frame and chassis, it's time to get all this inside the body shell. It's a little bit of a squeeze. There's a little bit of manipulation required, but it does fit. Just take your time. Give the sides of the body a little bit of a squeeze. Check for any fouling. Gently squeeze the parts over, and eventually that chassis and frame will pop in under the body. Just like that. So that should all be nicely fitted in at this stage, which it is. So then have to add in all those semi-gloss black parts, so the front grille, a couple of dots of CA glue, hold it in place until the CA grips, and then rear bumper and front bumper as well. So then there's a little bit of hand painting just to paint some silver into the recesses for the lights. So I'm just using a little bit of Revell Aqua Silver paint. Once I'm happy with that and the glass is fitted, I can then super glue the wheels in place. So these are lowered from the standard kit. Just with the way they fitted with the recesses and the wheels, they actually fit in a lower position. They are permanently glued in place. So I'm just using the stubs of the axles to glue to the bottom of the recess at the back of the wheels. So that actually raises them up a couple of millimeters, so it gives a lowered look. So all four wheels are firmly glued in place. And then pop the bonnet on. So there's only one step left. And that's to give the overall bodywork a final shine using the UMP Shine Spray. And once I'm happy with that, we can get it into the photo booth and get to the final photos. Just like this. So overall, absolutely delighted with the final finish. Really pleased with the final scheme I've gone for. It's got a mean, kind of menacing, slightly lowered look. Pretty much all in black apart from the yellow striping. But let's go back to me for those final thoughts about how this has gone. So there we have it. The Chevelle is done. I'll be honest, I think that's the best. Yeah, that is the best of the Revell releases of American muscle cars that I've built. Built a few of them. There's a few of them sat behind me. You know, Gran Torino, Mustang, Camaro, Challenger. Without a doubt, for me, that's the best of them. The quality of the moulding, brilliant parts count. Yeah, just that's it's a really good kit. By no means is it up there with, you know, what we would kind of normally quote as things like, it's not up there with a Tamiya kit. It's not perfect by any means, but it's as good as I've seen from Revell. Certainly for their American muscle cars, it's pretty darn good. I really enjoyed it. So as you can see, I've gone for kind of a overall gloss black. Every other ancillary part on the outside is in semi-gloss black. Very muted interior as well. The only highlight being that yellow striping that's down the front of the bonnet all the way to the back, and the yellow striping on the seats as well. So that's the only kind of spark of colour in it. Everything else is in black. So I guess the inspiration came from some photos I saw online. A kind of car that was done, not the same colour scheme, but done in a kind of an all over black with, actually I think the one I saw actually had semi-gloss black striping as well. I didn't want to go that kind of dark with it. I wanted a little bit of colour in there, so I went for the yellow striping. And overall, yeah, I'm really pleased with how it came out. Certainly for a very quick build, just in the kind of back end of November into December, it's come out pretty good. Yeah, pleased with that. So, top recommendation if you want to build an American muscle car from Revell, definitely go and build this kit. Anything else I can think of? Oh yeah, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. And for everyone watching, please like the video as well if you've liked it, and feel free to leave a comment as well. So yeah, so I'd like to thank everyone for watching, for sticking with it, and I think that's about it. Yeah, that's it for me. We're keeping this short, so I'm not going to ramble for too long. So there we go. It's another 3 minutes and a bit of me rambling anyway. So let's call it quits there, and let's get on with doing another video build, which will come out in a week or so. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. So bye for now.